Hello, it's Domain Dave again, cheapwinefinder.com. Another Trader Joe's wine. This time one of the reserve wines. We'll go into what that entails. And what's the name? I always gotta look up what the bottle says, even though I just wrote up a review on it like 5 minutes ago. It's weird. Trader Joe's Reserve Santa Licia Highlands Chardonnay 2020 Lot 231. This is just a standard reserve wine. It's typically speaking, they're talking about a wine that it's supposed to be comparable to a wine at twice the price. And I think they usually are. These are kind of Trader Joe's version of French negotiate wine. A negotiate in France is someone that's an independent wine company, and they go to established wineries and buy their excess or the bottles they weren't using, the grapes they weren't using, and make wine. And sometimes they take wine from this winery and that winery, create something new, and other times they just change the label. Now, Trader Joe's doesn't make their own wine. They can't. They're not the negotiate, but they have somebody do it. And there's a company on the back that's a independent wine company that does custom wines for companies. You'd be surprised how many places have custom wines, chain restaurants, whatever their house red wine is probably made for them, or whatever their house white wine is made for them. So it's a very popular thing to do. It's a lucrative business for a lot of these wine companies to sell excess grapes to these people. You get paid up front and keeps cash flow going. And when they're sold to places that aren't other retail wine shops, they don't really compete with your own wines on the shelves. So what we have here is a Santa Licia Highlands Chardonnay, and the Santa Licia Highlands are in the Santa Licia Mountains. Who knew that? Which is right off Big Sur in the Monterey Bay, in the foothills of the mountains. It's a really great place for top-notch wineries. There's a bunch of really excellent vineyards in there, and typical wines from there sell from just above $15 to maybe about $65 for not just wine Chardonnays there. They're also big on Pinot Noir. Pinot Noirs tend to cost a little bit more. I'm going to take a sip of this wine. And we'll talk about why this wine is different and kind of weird for a $9.99 wine. So the Santa Licia Highlands, it's high elevation, it's in the foothills. It's got a big difference in the temperatures. If it's 88 during the day, it's 50 at night. The fog rolls in off the bay, and it doesn't burn off till almost noon. So the sun beating down on the vines only lasts for lunchtime to sundown, and then it cools off, and that allows the grapes to have this long, cool growing season. And And Santa Licia Highlands is a premium growing area. You tend to hear a lot about the North Coast and Napa or Sonoma and that, but this is legit. These are some big name wineries are down here. And the claim to fame for this $9.99 Trader Joe's Santa Licia Highlands Chardonnay 2020 is that it's 100% oak barrel fermented. That is kind of a weird detail in a $9.99 wine. Just being a cheap wine finder, virtually all the wines, and not, there are exceptions here and there, are fermented in stainless steel tanks. There are barrel-aged, especially Chardonnays, that do lend themselves well to barrel fermentation, but 100% barrel fermentation is usually the higher-end wines. And this is supposed to be a $18, $19, $20 wine if it was in this original label. I'm gonna take another sip of this because it's interesting wine. Stainless steel tanks, since they've been around, and before stainless steel tanks were around, everything was barrel fermentation. Everything. So it's the old way of making it. It's nothing new. It's just the way that it used to be. But a stainless steel tank is, once you buy it, you can kind of have that forever. As long as you take care of it and clean it, and it's easier to clean and sanitize than oak barrels. Our oak barrels have a shelf life before they become neutral. And when you use it for fermentation rather than aging, when you use it for aging, there's more barrels that are new or newer that can give off oak. And when you typically do it for fermentation, you're not really looking to bring the oak in, though they didn't say this is 100% ferment barrel. They didn't really specify what the deal was with that. But what you want to, in a stainless steel tank, there's no air transfer. I mean, stainless steel blocks air. And while barrel is watertight, it's not airtight. And that little bit of exchange of oxygen changes the wine. Too much oxygen and you ruin the wine, but just a little and it makes something interesting. And what we got here, and this is a wine that actually tastes oaky. I mean, it does have oak, but it's not that buttery oak. It's more of a creamy vanilla flavoring, which is that kind of flavoring going in there. So, but it is if you're someone who doesn't like oaked wine, this is not going to be your thing. But, you know, to be honest, I mean, every time I go to a tasting, there's someone there who says, I don't like oaked wine. It's somebody who's never had an oaked wine. You know, the oaky wines are like Napa Valley 20 years ago. And you can tell that person never had a $80 Chardonnay from Napa Valley 20 years ago. So most people who tell me that, I don't like that, never actually had it. They don't really know what oak is, and I'm not complaining because I make stupid assumptions too. But there you go. So I'm going to take another sip and talk about this wine because it tastes different. For a $9.99 wine, I don't know where it came from. I don't know the entire history of it. I mean, they have a name of somebody, like a custom producer made it, but I doubt if a custom producer decided to use oak barrels to ferment the wine for a $10 wine. It's not something they would do. So I think it seems like this came from someplace that was already fermented. So that's kind of an interesting thing. So where did this wine come from? What's this wine about? I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. I don't have the inside. It's a production detail you don't find on $10 wines. You do find it on $22 wines. You do find it on $65 wines. $10, no, which is one of the reasons why you should buy it. Because if you want to find out what's the differences between a stainless steel fermented Chardonnay and a oak barrel fermented Chardonnay, this one tells you right away. So we want to learn a bit about Chardonnay. It doesn't matter if you love it or not. It's $9.99. The worst thing you can do is go, oh, okay, I tried it. Now I know that I either should look for oak barrel fermentation or I should stay with stainless steel. So it's one of those things where it teaches you. This is a $10 lesson in Chardonnay. So that's it for me, Domain Dave, cheapwinefighter.com. What's the name of this wine again? I'll say it one more time since I said it the very first time. It's Trader Joe's Reserve, Santa Licia Highlands, Chardonnay 2020, lot 231. It's an interesting wine, worth buying at $9.99. And I liked it. And if you think it's you don't like oak, well, try and actually see. So that's it for me. Adios. Keep it cheap. Push the button that says you like us somewhere, if you will. And stay cool, stay dry. And I'll talk to everybody in a couple days. Adios. Bye-bye.